I see that now.
Oh man, and we're live. Welcome back, Shifties. This is Shift the Journey. I'm your host, Tito Amogus. If where was I? Oh yeah, I mean we were in like mid laughter when we went live, but that's okay. What I meant to say was, if you've never watched the show, then I'll tell you about it. So, a while back, I decided I was going to create a podcast where I would talk to people about their career journeys. I've interviewed several veterans, and they talk through their transition and how things were different for them as opposed to how mine was, and all different branches. And I've also interviewed people who have changed, not just changed jobs, but like changed industries or job functions. Maybe they started out as a data analyst and then they went to project manager, or maybe they started out as an engineer and they're like a data scientist now. But the goal here is just to get out as much information as possible for anybody who may be thinking about making some kind of career shift, some kind of change in your life where you're like, hey, I think it'll be fun to go into something else, whatever that something else is. I just want you to know that we can't provide a blueprint, but we can provide evidence that it has been done. And there are quite a few people out there who are willing to give you any kind of advice you're looking for, as well as just some encouragement. You can do it. So today's episode, we're on episode 28. Can you believe that? Our guest today is Matt Morrissey. Matt and I used to work together when we worked for an insurance company. We worked with a lot of claims data. He was a claims data analyst, and I was a data analyst who worked with claims data. So we didn't have the same exact job function, but we made it work. We did whatever, it was a lot of fun. So anyway, here we go. We're going to introduce Matt. So here's Matt Morrissey. Yay, everybody. The pride of Evansville, Indiana. Is that right?
That's where I grew up.
Yeah.
Went to primary school there and then off to college in Colorado. So.
Oh man, I didn't know that you went to college in Colorado. All right, so you're from Indiana, and then you're like, "Hey, I'm going to go to college in Colorado." What was the thought process there?
First, and I followed, and then as soon as I moved out there, he moved back home. So it was a real life-changing experience. I would say I had a unique freshman year, but things slowly worked itself out, and changed majors first year, and then.
So what did you go initially? What did you go to school for?
Initially, I was going for mechanical engineering.
And, okay.
Yeah, so they weren't offering that at the Boulder campus at the time, so I went to the downtown Denver campus.
Oh, okay.
I think they're sister schools, so they're not. They don't have the same mascot, so I assume they're treated as different still.
Wait, what school is it again?
That's University of Colorado at Denver.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's it. Well, what's the mascot over there?
It's a lynx there. So.
Oh yeah. So it's not. That's interesting.
As everyone would associate with CU,
Yeah. Oh, that's nuts. So, what made you want to change majors?
Well, I was in the same classes as another a friend of mine, and he basically was switching his major to math, and I was like, yeah, I really love math. What the heck am I doing here and this stuff? And so I know that's not everyone's like forte.
That's like a lot of people are like, ew.
Yeah. Oh yeah, most definitely. To my face even.
Yeah.
So I picked where I was good at. I had zero clue what the heck I was gonna do with it, to be honest. I went towards applied mathematics, started learning some MATLAB coding, just doing some
Oh,
for and while loops. And like, uh, I had to take some preliminary computer science classes and realize, like, man, I wish I would have started this like a while ago, because like I've been into computers a bit, but just like it didn't, dude. I was such a oblivious college student. Okay, I like had no idea what I was gonna do. Had no idea what was out there that like I could do. I
and
just
welcome to the club. I think that's the, you know, I don't know. I think that's the more of the story. Like more often than not, that's the story where people are like, oh yeah, I went to school for whatever, and then they're like, then I realized with my first, core class, I was like, I don't want to do this. Who wants to do this? And like kind of stumbled upon something else.
yeah, yeah, most definitely was that way. Um,
Yeah.
I'm sure everyone can relate to that, whether it's joining the armed forces or not. It's like, did I choose the right branch? I like what they do over here. But
Yeah.
um, yeah,
So,
and
so then, how long did it take you, or did you finish?
oh, yes, that's a good question. I
Yeah.
did finish since I switched majors about halfway through. So I did 2 years into the mechanical engineering.
Whoa.
Yeah, so then
Okay.
yeah, so I about 80% of my credits were transferable. So to my new major, and that's kind of how things went the way that they did. And then I learned what's called SAS or SAS,
Mm-hmm.
SAAS. So these are all capital letters.
Yeah.
And it's a structured query language that I went to get certification for it, and like missed the certification by one question. So
What?
yeah, and I wasn't didn't have a whole lot of money to retake a certification.
Mm.
The school paid for the first one, right?
Yeah.
Well, paid for it. I promise you that. But yeah, so that kind of diverted me away from that a little bit. But like basically that's how I got my feet wet with coding, a
Yeah.
little bit of coding and a little bit of query language. And I don't know, query languages weren't explained to me the way that I would understand them now. So
Yeah.
yeah, completely different mindset.
Yeah. What do you mean by that?
Well, it was all like, from book learning. They didn't, they're teaching you how to query, but they didn't necessarily direct you on like what the structure looks like in the first place. So like when you're querying,
Oh.
like it's like I feel like I didn't get explained what tables are, how they're structured, why they're structured a certain way,
Wow.
or
That's
like,
nuts.
I mean, no fault of their own. Maybe I was in a more advanced class than I like really should have been. So like
Mm-hmm.
I skipped some steps. It happens.
Yeah.
But in the grand scheme of things, like uh, I didn't set up uh, internships or anything. Man, I was like the worst case scenario. Okay, of
Oh
like
my gosh.
I like started the job market, had no idea what the heck I was like looking for, what I wanted to interview for. So it long story short, started a business, stopped the business. It was a moving company, and then I moved back home. Is spent 2 years there. Started an internship. Okay, it paid like
Okay.
$12 an hour. Uh,
Oh, well, it's something. Some people are out here doing free internships,
yeah, so
unpaid.
started at
Whoa.
26. Okay, and this was like a 3 month summer internship for all these other college students, and I'm sitting here like, man, I've been out of school for a while. Uh, but it was worth it. I got exposed to Tableau,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
like ETL engineering
Yeah.
processes.
Yep.
And like so like every step of the way, I was just like learning little bits and pieces here and there. But what I did there is what I did at the General, which is like taking
Yeah.
Excel workbooks and automating their data sets and putting it in Tableau.
So I got a question for you. So like you'd been out of school for a while, for a couple of years, right? And then
Yes,
you
correct.
then you I had no idea like you could be out of school for a couple of years and then go look for an internship. I don't like
Yeah, me neither.
yeah. I mean, how did that come up? Did somebody say, "Hey, there's an internship open," or were you just looking one day?
Yeah, it's just on job boards. Shout out to LinkedIn. I've tried, probably like 7 different job boards, but LinkedIn has been my go-to. But
Really?
it's the area that I'm in, you know, the tech world. LinkedIn was like really just getting up and going. I feel like for tech people and like getting recruited that way. So
Hmm.
I know
Interesting.
it's not. Well, my wife, she's like swears by Indeed. She's like,
Yeah.
I'm getting jobs through Indeed, so it's just like
I'm
uh,
trying to think. I
yeah,
got that job at the General through Indeed. Like I applied through there, but everywhere else, it was my first job out of the military was I went to the company website and applied through there. And everybody else, everybody in the entire department, they're like, "Oh, we were placed by the same recruiting, the staffing company." I was like, "What?" They said, "How'd you get here?" I was like, "Well, I applied on the company website." What?
yeah.
Yeah, they couldn't believe it.
I suggest that every time because even though I find all my jobs through LinkedIn, but it's like I mostly apply if I can find their if I can find their job board and it's posted. Sometimes it's not posted on their
Yeah.
websites.
Yep.
Uh, you gotta hunt and figure out if the job's real now. You gotta
Oh
figure
yeah, that's a big issue.
yeah.
So, how long were you in that internship?
3 months, and
3 months. Okay.
that's where I found the internship is on LinkedIn, and like they were just like apply. This is like a short term thing. I was trying to work it into a longer term relationship, but that it just like didn't pan out. Feel like now that I look back at it, I probably was too desperate to like get a job that I'm just whatever. Um,
Is there such a thing? I don't know if there's such a thing. Maybe back then there wasn't, but in 2024, I would think that, desperation is on a lot of people's, faces because it is a rough job market right now.
oh yeah.
So, how did you find your next job then?
Next job was just through a staffing agency. Started
Okay.
as a mailman at a bank. Um, Proceeded to start auditing mortgages and developed into a quality control analyst. Uh,
Okay. Was that in Indiana or in Florida?
that was actually in Kansas.
Oh my gosh, man.
You know,
I knew so like we've had this conversation before. You moved all over the place and I was like, "You like a military brat?" And you're like, "No, we just moved a lot." So, okay. So
all,
what
all of my job career that I have now started in Kansas.
how please tell me, how did you get from Indiana to Kansas other than driving or flying, but how did you get that job there? What how did that work out?
Okay. Well, my parents, when I moved back home, my parents were living in Kansas City, Missouri at the time. So,
Oh,
so I was 24. Um, Basically took me 2 years to like get it. So during all of this time between 24 and 26 before I got my internship, I taught myself SQL
oh,
because I'm like, I don't have skills. I'm like, I'm like skillless. It felt like anyway.
yeah.
Um, on paper,
Mhm.
and that's what kind of mattered. And so, yeah, I got that internship. I went to staffing agencies, worked as a like a assistant to a surveyor, so holding their sticks and having their total stations like beam the laser to and from you.
So you're out in the field,
Oh
that
yeah,
thing
yes
in
sir.
a bright orange vest or a
Yeah.
yellow, whatever it was? Oh,
Uh,
wow.
I helped out with the Kansas City trolley and uh, made sure it went straight, so it would actually go straight. It's amazing.
It's important. Yeah.
Yeah, straight where it's supposed to, curve when
Right.
it needs to. So, uh,
Right.
yeah, learned a crap ton of history about Kansas City, but at the field it was just a job, and then I applied for through that staffing agency, got the banking job. Sorry, and
Wow.
then from there I got my first SQL job at a place called Home Credit, which they no longer exist, but they were a credit card agency that teamed up with Sprint,
Uh-huh.
offered credit cards through them.
So in the time of learning how to use structured query language, nobody ever told you it's called SQL.
No.
That's the big argument. Whatever. It's whatever. I call it SQL. You call it SQL, potato, potato. Who
Yeah.
cares?
When you're self-teaching, sometimes you don't hear anybody say the things, and then you hear a bunch of acronyms, and you're like,
Right.
"Oh, I don't want to look dumb asking what does that mean." And when like you use the tool all the time, but it's like I've probably used it for I don't know 2.5 years before I learned like, oh, there's like MySQL and
Oh yeah.
NoSQL
T
and
yeah, T SQL and all that, right?
yes, and like
Yeah.
I'm just like, oh, okay, this is how it's gonna be. Adapt to whatever somebody's using.
Yeah.
I mean, syntax. That's the difference. Anyway,
Yep.
so yeah, that's home credits where I started compliance analyst. Um, uh, Essentially analyzing credit card compliance. It's
Mhm.
as it sounds, but built some dashboards there, built a fair lending model with some naive Bayesian statistical problems,
Okay.
um,
Yeah.
and some Census Bureau data to be able to supplement. Uh,
Mhm.
Nowadays, AI can do a much better job, but still, there's always going to be room for us because clean data. If you got
Yeah, exactly. Data is dirty. I saw a video the other day and somebody's like, "Oh yeah, I'm a data analyst and AI is going to take all our jobs." And I was like, "What?" I'm like, "The data has to be clean for AI to work, you know?" Oh,
I mean, all I think AI is a bunch of like statistical models slapped to like, and then you choose which one's the best one. And from that standpoint, it's like
mhm.
well, statistically, I'm going to say this after this word. you know,
Yeah.
this is probably a terrible example, but I would 100% agree with you. It's like there's always going to be human intervention at some
Yeah.
point. I
Yeah.
mean, be that
Yeah.
human.
Yeah, I don't ever want to live in a world where the machines are taking over and we're having to fight the machines and we got to send people back in time. That's like it sounds like a
Last resort.
all right. Are you John Connor? But
Yeah.
so you're working your way up through this like a banking organization, right? And then like the
Yeah.
home
So
credit.
I
So
was
then what
year.
came after that?
Um, I started up a CBD company while I was at that
Oh,
credit card.
that's right. That's the one I was referring to when I said, "Oh, he's an entrepreneur." I didn't know about the moving company.
Oh, sure, sure. Yeah. I mean, okay. So like the moving company was like kind of we were listed on Craigslist as like labor. Uh,
Yeah.
our people would rent U-Hauls. So like, you know, we started out small with like basically $30 an hour for two people.
Oh,
Was like, yeah, dude, that's how much you pay for one person at minimum. Uh,
yeah.
anyway, we worked ourselves up. After 3 years, we were moving $1 million homes without being insured.
Oh.
So people were like using us regardless of like, I mean, because of reputation. We
Hmm.
stopped advertising and we're just getting here's like, um, what's the term? Referrals.
Yeah. Word of mouth.
Then, yeah, the CBD company is what brought me to Florida because we partnered with a family, let's see, a sister of a family friend. And yeah, we were trying to get a license here in Florida for medical marijuana as well. But
Hmm.
now that I know what I was up against, I was like, no way. I needed way more capital than like any of us could conjure together. And just the way that it's has to be vertically integrated here. And
Yeah.
yeah, operations had to be large in order for you to win. But so yeah, I continued with the CBD company up until gosh, I guess it was November of 2019.
Mm.
Yeah, things in my personal life needed funds for medical reasons, so
Hmm.
dissolved the business. I was in business with my brother, who also is in Florida.
Hmm.
So he moved down here for the business as I did, but I also knew it wasn't going to pay me what I needed, so that's why I was looking for a job at in the general,
Oh, yeah.
and so yeah, and that's where I got exposed to Alteryx, which man, I now that like I want you to know that I introduced Alteryx to quite a few different peoples
Oh, yeah.
after that experience. One for scalability and for
Hmm.
minimal team, but like now that I know what's out there, and you know, I started dabbling in Python
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
during gosh, so I left the general around 2019.
Hmm.
So that's when I started dabbling in Python and um, started figuring out what I can and can't do and
Yeah.
replicate at scale, because like cleaning data in Python is a little bit more rough than a tool assisted software, but
Right.
uh, nonetheless, anything can be done in Python. I've figured out there's just about anything. I haven't found too much that it can't do. It's just whether it's efficient and you can teach other people how. That's
Yeah.
the
So you still use Alteryx?
I do. I currently use it at my current job.
Yeah. You use Python with Alteryx?
I have before, but I don't do that here.
Oh.
My current role does there's only certain folks that get to integrate that way. I'm not one of them anymore.
Oh. Okay. Well, hey, let's change the subject.
Like, you got your data engineers versus like analysts such as myself.
Okay.
So I worked. Okay, so I'll just like shorten it a little bit from the general
Yeah.
to my current position. I worked at a cannabis company out of Florida. Um, I did that for 3 years, and I introduced them to Alteryx and kind of set up a lot of their cultivation databases. So, like, we were
Mhm.
analyzing like what inventory analysis, yields. Uh, sorry, and then I got into like their warehouse management system, so I got to
Yeah.
implement a warehouse management system from the ground.
Oh.
I cleaned all the data and organized it in the hierarchy needed, right?
Yeah.
Um, uh, I got to implement quite a few different systems, interacted with the e-commerce platforms, and they're a multi-state operator, so they were doing e-commerce in 3 different states. So they had compliance for 3 different. Uh,
Oh, yeah.
I So I met their need by creating a product identification management system that would cater towards those compliance and the compliance states that they were in. I
Oh, that's
created alone. It was a team effort. You can only imagine organizing master data and implementing it all in one.
yeah, yeah. I was gonna say, so like the size of the company or the size of your department, like directly influences how much you can get your hands on, right, at one time. Yeah, so I've had conversations with people who are like trying to get into data, and one thing they always ask is like, "Oh, what's the size of the company? Does that matter?" And I'm like, "Actually, yes, it does," because I worked for a large corporation before, and I had my little box, and I was not allowed to come out of the box. That's your hole. You stay in your hole. Don't
Oh, sure.
don't come out of your hole. And you get an appendage out of there and look whack, so but then when you work for a small company, it's like, hey, we have all of these things to do, and there are two of us or three of us, so you're going to do 8 things, it's like, and if you're not mentally prepared for that, or that's not like in your what you want to be in your career path, then you're gonna have a hard time,
Oh,
either side of it, right?
yeah.
But so yeah, that's it sounds like you were, they say it all the time, wearing a bunch of hats, wearing a lot of hats, a lot of different hats, right?
I definitely did. Um, that's the difference between startups and like more established businesses, I would say, uh, versus size.
Yeah.
It's maturity.
Oh yeah, no, that's true.
And
Yes. Oh,
even
I'll use that.
a company, they could not be very mature in their data data development, and so
Hmm.
you're going to get a lot of raw data. You're going to get
Hmm.
a lot of different kinds of data, stuff that they've never even worked with. You're like, hey, we're using this software over here, but no one's accessed the system for years. Like, I, I deal with that currently, even.
Yeah.
Like, they're getting new software. No one's connected to it before or asked to. And,
Hmm.
um, well, I don't do the connecting anymore. I um, submit tasks for it, but
Hmm.
I encourage whoever's out there listening to learn APIs at some point in
Oh,
your career.
those are fun.
It's fun. It gives you data fast, and it teaches you way more in one project than you would learn anywhere else. It's like, um, but you got to take it from nuts, soup to nuts, or something like that,
Yeah.
where you're like not only extracting the data and automating that, but also visualizing it in the at the grand scheme of things. Because if I feel if you don't know the whole pipeline, you'll never know what is needed by other people.
Right. No, that's true. Yeah, because I've seen so many times where people are like, "Oh, I'm going to build this Alteryx workflow for this data, and we're going to pull this, and we're only going to use it over here." And then you get on another project for a different department, and they're like, "Yeah, we need you to pull the data for this," and I'm like, "Oh man, if I had known that you guys use that same data, then I could have just." Built something in earlier in the workflow. And then sometimes I just go in there and just, have a little out from there. Hey, there you go. Yeah. One run, 2 reports or 12 reports, whatever it is, 12 dashboards. So, so like, so the thing about the data careers that I've always found interesting is that there's like this huge, like, broad spectrum of all the things you can do, and as you were saying, in a less mature uh, company, you can do all those different things, and then and more mature than you're like in your hole, right? Stay in the hole. And the the uh the funny thing about those things though is that the titles, they don't mean nothing.
They sure don't. I tell you what, I was called a cultivation specialist.
Oh, you sound like a farmer.
Uh, that was me, and yeah. I've been a data analyst. I've been a compliance analyst. The zero data around that term, but like everything was like constant data pulls, constant querying. And you know what? Of all the things that go through each and every one of those careers is validation.
Yeah.
That is the term that nobody wants to hear, but has to be done all the time.
Yeah.
Did you validate this? And it's like, man, that word isn't used when you start a data career. It's like,
no,
whether you can do something, not whether it's good or not.
Yeah, I there's been so many instances like where I've had different projects where I'm like, okay, I need to pull this data straight from the source and I need to validate it against the reports that you have. And like the client or the customer, whatever, the person in the other department, they're like, but why do you need that? Just pull the data. And I'm like, well, because it could be like disaggregated and your data is aggregated. And a lot of times I've gotten back like, what does that mean? So then, we have a conversation about it. But yeah, like the different levels of aggregation or some kind of formula that was applied, some kind of business rules, logic for that. Yeah. It's huge. And so anybody can pull data. And you can say, yeah, we're going to schedule that to run, every Monday or whatever. But then the people on the end user is like, what is this? What is this stuff? It's like, oh, that's what you asked for. No, it's not, right? You got to validate. And I think validation takes a long time too. If you don't validate it, then you're like doing stuff like, and all of a sudden all the airlines are down and all that, stuff like that. It's like, oh yeah, well, we were kind of doing that on the fly in production. So
yes. I mean, I've brought down a few systems in my day.
Oh, same here.
Thankfully, most of my stuff could be reverted. But yeah, I would say the way that the general structured their entire dev operations is probably the best I've experienced.
Yeah,
with the way that they had a dev quality and a production environment.
Yeah.
So shout outs to them for sure.
Shout out to the general. Do you remember the motto?
I don't know.
Come on, man. It's for a great low rate. You can get online, go to the general and save some time. And a lot of people don't know that like in the commercials, the general is like this tall, but in real life, like in person, that mascot, his head is like this big. I remember like being at my desk or something and like talking to somebody and somebody goes, oh my gosh, the general is here. And I'm like, what? And I look up and I see that head like barely passing into somebody's office because the doorway was like just this much bigger than his head. I was like, dude, that thing is huge.
That is huge.
And so we took a picture with him and I was like, this guy is massive. What? Anyway, so you're not in the data engineering anymore. Do you miss it? Do you miss that kind of stuff?
I mean, I do a little bit of it. So I started doing some consulting on the side.
Oh, okay.
And that's where I kind of picked up more data engineering than I was currently doing.
Mm-hmm.
Made two APIs kind of talk to each other in the sense that like the only interaction was someone double clicking a file, of course, but the engineering part was calling up one API, pulling all the samples, and then looking those samples up in this other system, pulling
Mm-hmm.
down not only the results of those samples, but also their images and their pictures and sending them back to the other
Oh,
API.
that's cool.
So it was a fun project. And yeah, it can be replaced, but it was, uh, I built it all in Python. So that's kind of like, you know, I learned APIs outside of Python. Learning them in Alteryx is a little bit different than
Oh, yeah.
anything else, but it's like, there's a lot to learn out there on the internet, and
Oh, yeah.
just understanding a few key terms of what you're trying to do. There's a
Yeah.
lot of people that have helped me out. Stack Overflow, thank you for my career, I guess.
Yeah. Stack Overflow, GitHub,
GitHub
and for me, like, even like, almost 10 years ago, Tableau community, Alteryx community.
yes,
Yes.
yes.
That's like, I don't know. It's like, having a open book every time, right? Open book test.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
when you go to those, when you have those certifications where you can't use any other outside materials, like, I've taken those before, and I was like, this is bogus, man. And somebody says, why do you say that? I said, because in real life, you have Google. You may also have Chat GPT, depending on like your company's security,
Oh sure.
settings or whatever. But um, Google everything. I Google everything, man. It's like, wait, I know I've done that before, but instead of sitting here and trying to remember all the different things, I'm gonna jog my memory by Googling it. And it's like, oh, that's right. I was following that link right there. All right, here we go. It's
It's for like basic functions, and then you're like, oh man, I have a library of projects that I've done. Oh yeah, I did this function over here. Let me
yeah,
call that up and like harvest some of that code, slap it over here, and
yeah,
we're we're calling it mayonnaise.
yeah, 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 exactly. So, what is something that so usually I ask people like, hey, what's something that you're involved in that's unique? I may ask you that, but since you've had a couple of your own little small businesses, what's something that a piece of advice that you'd give to somebody who's thinking about starting their own business?
Starting their own business, I would say. I mean, the first thing that I would do is write down what you're trying to do and essentially a plan on how to get there. Um, Starting a small business is overwhelming. So I would say, at a high level, just, you know, branch stuff out into certain segments of understanding like, okay, well, financials is going to be over here, and then kind of detail out some financial stuff like, oh, I'm going to have purchase orders, I'm going to have deliveries done, I'm going to all the things you spend your money on. And then part of that is understanding your logistics. So I'm like, okay, well, my purchase orders are for the products that I'm buying, and like, because at the end of the day, managing a company is managing the monies properly
Yeah,
and understanding like, make sure you pay yourself. Like so my unique thing while I'm answering this question,
do it, man. Go
I,
for it.
I helped my parents out. So I built them a inventory system and Excel because of the way that they needed to interact. So it's
Mm.
a two-pronged approach. One part is user input, mostly for their inventory, so they do it all in one place. So they inbound, they sell, they transfer, they consume, all in one kind of interface. So they have transaction types and stuff. I could go on for days on like what it does, but there's a second part to it that does all the reporting and their invoicing. So I mean, basically, you know, one's reading the system, the other one's just reporting on said system. They got bill of materials, like cost of goods sold. And I built in the ability to consume their inventory based upon what they're making. So
Wow.
a smaller ERP.
Yeah.
Enterprise resource planning is what that stands for all you folks out there.
Right. That's so crazy. You built an ERP in Excel.
Yeah, essentially. So their business model is way different than many other places. So they have different pricing at different venues. And so, but they want to offer the same products. So it's like each venue has its own pricing. And yeah. So they have to select what venue they're working at in order to sell those things out.
Wow. Yeah, that can get really hairy.
Yeah, I just revamped it from about a year ago because they didn't used to make stuff. They just used to do consignment, and now they're putting everything together.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So are they still in Kansas City?
They are in Indianapolis now. So
you guys are all over the place.
Yeah,
man. You know, people always make fun of us like we're moving all the time. It's like, I don't know, man, because 10 years ago I was in Mississippi. 4 years ago I was in Tennessee, and I'm back in Mississippi. But I mean, we're not all over the place like you guys are.
Yeah, I know, right? Just the way that, you know, my dad's job went. You know, he's lived a bunch of places, but yeah, I mean, I've known successful small businesses. I've figured out that like I'm better at operations and you know, financially managing them. But you know, if you have the sales personality and like the people skills, that is like something I've developed a little bit after owning businesses, but networking is huge. I can't tell you enough how much networking and just going to like small business development communities. I'm sorry, I'm blanking on. We have a group here that's like a bunch of mom and pop businesses all get together. They kind of advertise with each other as well as like tackle their business problems themselves. You know, leverage AI out there for like, you know, generating ideas, not necessarily doing the work for you, but you know, there's only so AI can only take you so far. You know, people are where your money's at, because like they'll start referring people to your business. If you offer what they need, they would much rather hear it from their neighbor on who to use or their friend versus getting advertised to. There's just a countless community out there that isn't educated about what you do until you do it and like start offering. So
man, that's all really good advice, good information, man. I appreciate you sharing your story and that bit of advice. If there's something that you could tell somebody who is trying to break into tech or into data, whatever, just one piece of advice, what would that be?
One piece of advice. Don't be discouraged about your resume or about the job descriptions. Work with what you got. Okay. I have experience, you know, doing some analysis in Excel, but you try and leverage it and discuss it in a meaningful way. So like I did this surveying job that had zero impact to data, but what I did do is I expressed that I learned how to customize the devices and understood how to create my own programming on there. So being able to just take your experiences out and apply them to a different situation and how you would word that. I'm self-taught. It's hard because I have the drive to like want to learn the things that I need to learn to get the job that I want.
Yeah.
And so I would say, at the end of the day, don't be discouraged. People are always asking for more than what you got. But that gives you room to grow into it. And with that attitude is how you get the confidence to like show them that like you're worth something, and you got the skill set or at least the willingness to learn.
Yeah.
And
Huge. Yeah, that's huge. Man, well, I'm gonna go ahead and call it, man. I'm so glad that you finally got on here. Haven't seen you in forever, man. It's like I don't know, what's it been? Probably 5 years, right?
Close to
Something
5
like that. Yeah. You don't look much older. I'm sure I do. It's okay.
No, not really.
Oh man. But yeah, don't go anywhere. When I end the stream, don't go anywhere. We'll just talk a little bit in the studio. But for everybody else, next week we have I'm looking at next year's schedule already. But I finally got my whole 2024 schedule all filled out. Everybody's signed up for every slot available in 2024. It's kind of crazy. And it's only August. So I'm starting to fill up my 2025. So if you are interested in coming on the show, shoot me a message. Let's talk. Let's have a conversation. And then, if you're not scared that whatever you say live on a broadcast to the internet will be on the internet forever. If you're not afraid of that, let's have a conversation, and then I'll send you the sign-up link. But next week, I believe we have Jeremy Grice coming on. Jeremy is a United States Air Force veteran. We were actually deployed at least once together, and we worked on the same aircraft for a number of years. And so he's going to come on and talk about how he got from point A to point B. And I'm pretty sure he's doing stuff in schools like junior ROTC. But the last thing I remember was that. But I don't know what you're doing, Jeremy. We're going to find out next week. So anyway, I'll see you guys. Have a great night. Peace.